What is up, guys and girls? Harry Mackenzie from Visordown, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that geezer's hair is crazy. But you know what's also crazy? This bad boy right here. This is Energica Eva. And I've lived with it now for about 2 months. Covered over 500-600 miles. And I've been really starting to bond with the bike and get to know it. So this video isn't really a full review as such. What it is what it's like to live with an Energica Eva. So if you've watched Toad's review, and you know what, just chuck it in a link just here. If you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. But if you have watched it, Toad talked about battery life quite a bit, and I think that's what most of the questions surrounding this bike are going to revolve around. And the battery life is really dependent on how you ride it. So if you can't already tell, my London accent, I'm from London, and this is honestly a brilliant place to ride this bike. You know, I've been commuting to work, to and from work, and it's quite peaceful. And there were certain things, there were certain anxieties that I sort of was expecting to experience, mostly surrounding the fact that it is silent. You know, will cars see me? Will cars see me in their blind spots, so on and so forth. And the reality is, you just got to slightly adjust your riding, ride a bit more defensively, and just be aware that people might not necessarily hear you. I haven't had any trouble at the moment from what I've been doing, and I think the biggest thing of all is just how peaceful it is to ride an electric bike. You know, you pull up to someone, you pull up at a set of lights, there's no engine hum, there's no heat coming and hitting your legs and your other private areas and heating them up nicely. It's just very peaceful, very easy to get along with. And yeah, people do check it out. They start to look, and they go on their gas guzzlers, I call them. They start to look at the bike, and they sort of don't know what it is, and they think, and then they finally figure out, and you see their heads and go, oh, that's an electric bike, and they think, right, I'll show him. But this thing, from a set of lights, there is going to be very little out on the road that will beat it from 0 to 30 or 0 to 40. The way it accelerates from a set of lights, it's freaking dope. It's so dope. And yeah, you see him come by with a tail between the legs, like, didn't expect it to be that quick, you know. So yeah, that's what it's like in town. And again, with the charge and battery, range anxiety isn't really a thing in town. There's so many polar charge points, which is the system that we're set up with. But also there's charge points where you can essentially use your contactless payment card, and you can just charge up and fast charge with your normal cards. You don't even have to register. They are a bit more expensive, but you don't even really have to register with polar charging stations, so that's pretty cool. So outside of an urban setting, I suppose B roads and stuff like that, this bike does really well. Motorways, not so much, because at those speeds you're using up so much battery and the motor's working quite hard to stay at 70 mile an hour, which is the speed limit here. So you're actually better off, even if it's longer distance, you're actually better off going down a B road or going down an A road, sort of 50-60 mile an hour, having a bit of fun, going through the twisties, just enjoying the bike and the peacefulness that it actually evokes. And yeah, I suppose I've got quite an epic time lapse of the journey, because we went up to Bruntingthorpe aerodrome to sort of high speed test this thing, and it's pretty darn quick. I clocked 135 mile an hour on it, and the journey up there was about 130 miles, so it's quite a big journey. It's right at the point where it says, you know, its charge limit is and its battery life is at. And yeah, you know, going up there I was slightly anxious at first. You know, it's my first big journey on it, round trip of, you know, over 250, almost 300 miles, with some of the routes that I took, so I wanted to go down some funky roads. Really wasn't that frightening once you sort of get used to, you know, there's apps like ZapMap and so on and so forth. Once you get used to that, it's really easy to find a charge point. At the moment, because there aren't that many electric vehicles about, it's quite easy to plug in and charge up, you know, fast charge. And this does charge about 25 minutes. You know, if you've got sort of, you know, if you want to get up to 100 for 30% or whatever, or 20% to 85%, whatever, it's so easy to do. They're not occupied at the moment. This is one big benefit of having an e-bike now, is that the charge points aren't occupied, so it's like free to use. You can just use whatever one you want. You don't have to worry about it being occupied or whatnot. You can just plug straight in, charge up, juice up, carry on your journey. So in terms of servicing of the motor, the batteries have got a life of 1200 cycles, and then you would need to replace them. and the bike has, I believe, a warranty of 3 years. Now eventually it is an oil cooled motor, so eventually you will need to replace the fluid in there, but I've only ever seen the motor temperature get up to about 27 degrees, and that was on a really hot day. So, you know, reliability is going to be spot on these things. There's not really much to go wrong. So big plus there in terms of servicing. So another thing on my journeys through town and up to Bruntingthorpe and whatnot is the brakes. Now these brakes, if you don't already know, are Brembo M50s, and they're flipping good brakes. If I'm being completely honest, I think Energica have put brakes that are really almost too good. I know it sounds really weird, but because it's got the regenerative braking system, you don't really use the front brakes all that much. You can easily just roll off the throttle, and it's almost like you're just feathering the front brake anyway when it comes to a stop on the engine braking. And you just rely on the rear just to slow you down right at the end when you reach a set of lights or you know, the end of a junction or something. So I think the brakes on this are almost too good, which is odd to say, but it's something that I've had to get used to. I do use the rear brake a lot when I ride, and I'm a bit of a stickler for it. Rear brake on this is brilliant, but if you're going to get an electric bike and it has modifiable engine braking like this, then it's something that you will learn to use, and it makes riding quite interesting. You just plan ahead a bit more, you assess things slightly differently, and to be honest, this wouldn't be all that fun hammering on the front brakes and diving into corners, especially with those tyres, which I'm not a massive fan of. Diablo Rosso 3s, not the best tyre in the world, but to be honest, you don't really need a great front tyre, as I say, because you're not using the front brake all that much. One thing that's I've had to modify is just using the rear brake more. So another thing that the Energica has taught me, or something that I've had to unlearn, I suppose, in a way: no clutch lever and no gear shifter. And there'll probably be some onboards spliced into this where you'll see me come up to a junction and I'll be reaching for something which isn't there, and I'll be stamping down. And it's weird how this becomes such second nature when you're on a conventional petrol powered motorcycle. But on the Energica, you don't have to worry about that. And after a while, it was just like a scooter in a way. It's just twist and go. And when it goes, it goes. So it's a bit better than a scooter in that regard. But, you know, it's something you have to unlearn. It makes riding a lot easier. It's like getting an automatic, you know, as cool as manuals are. At the end of the day, it's way easier to drive or ride an automatic. And yeah, I actually quite enjoy it. You know, it's just make it easier. I don't have to worry about anything. Just twist and go, baby. Firstly, it's not as hard as you think to live with an electric bike. A lot of people, you know, they're always going to be for petrol bikes, and I get that. I'm for petrol bikes just as much as you guys, but the reality is these are the future and they are coming. But I think what I'm trying to say is they're not actually as hard to live with as people will lead you to believe. You know, going all the way up to Bruntingthorpe, 130 miles, driving like a bit of an idiot, riding like a bit of an idiot. It needed one charge, one fast charge. It took 25 minutes. You can see it in the time lapse, and yeah, you're away again. So that takes a minute and a half of planning, you know, before you go on your journey to go on ZapMap or Polar app or whatever and pick a charge point halfway between you and your destination if you're going above 100 odd mile. So it's really not that difficult. Secondly, as we discussed, it's easy. You don't have to change gear. You don't have to think about trying to feed the clutch in when you're changing gears. You don't have to, you know, use the clutch when you're stopped at a set of lights. There's very little to fatigue on this bike. It's literally twist and go. My third and final point is, I know I've raved about this being the quickest thing off the line at 30-40 miles an hour. I know it sounds a little bit Anaraki, but it really is flipping fast. And at Brunty, as I say, we clocked about 130, 135 mile an hour on it. But it's not really the top speed that I'm concerned about. It's just the way it accelerates. And believe you me, once you get to 30-40 mile an hour, it picks up even more. The torque just hits you like a train. It's so much fun. And there's no time wasting changing gear. You just and you're away like a jet. That's probably the one thing that really makes me smile about this bike, is just the way it takes off. That's what it's like living with a Energica Eva. Hope you enjoyed this little bit of insight. Sorry I blabbered on a bit. I've been Harry McKenzie, Visordown.com. Peace.